Story 1. Compared to other comments here, this is quite mild, but it is very annoying to have to cook or plan 3 meals a day forever. Story 2. When you are a disabled child, you are seen as cute and special with many supports. When you are a disabled adult, you become invisible and expendable if you do not or cannot work. You constantly fight an uphill battle to gain employment and then fight hard to keep that employment. Even then, you are never seen as an equal. Story 3. A sort of aloneness. Going through rough times lately, there really are very few people who can turn off the stay positive type of response and just hear what you are saying. To clarify, I am not one for long-winded woe is me sessions. Story 4. How much even the simplest things, such as chores, daily responsibilities, and finances, can be challenging. I do not have children, but I cannot imagine being a single parent today. Story 5. Not everybody gets to live a long, full life. My brother died at 21 after a lifetime of muscular dystrophy. He never got to live life with his disability. Story 6. The number of people you meant to spend more time with you kept putting off for one reason or another. Then they are gone. Story 7. That love is not always kind, family is not always safe, and being the bigger person often means swallowing pain so others can stay comfortable. Story 8. You really don't know when you will see someone for the last time. When I was 27, a tree fell on my mom's house during a storm. A large branch came through the roof and hit her while she was in bed. She was fine, just bruised her thigh. My brother lived an hour away, and I lived a little further, so early the next morning we headed to her house to remove the tree. I bought a chainsaw on the way, my brother brought his, and we got the big pine tree off, cut it up and stacked it away for her. I gave her a hug, and she tried to pay me for the chainsaw. I laughed and said no. I loaded my family up and went home. 2 weeks later, she had knee surgery she had been planning. A few days after that, she had an embolism and died. She texted me on her way to the hospital and was gone 30 minutes later. Story 9. You start to understand all those adults you never got as a kid. What is even crazier is that you begin doing the exact same things they did. Honestly, it blows my mind. Story 10. There is legitimately always something that needs to be done. Bills to be paid, dishes to be washed, food to be cooked, lawns to be mowed, tires to be rotated, children to be cared for. It just never ends. Story 11. I thought being an adult would mean that I would finally feel like I knew what I was doing and that making decisions would be less agonizing. Spoiler alert. In my 40s and I am still an anxious ditherer. Story 12. That no battle stays won. You have to keep fighting every day. Lose weight? Great, but you have to keep working at it or it sneaks back on. Found a great career? Super, but you have to stay on top of training and learning new things and technologies. Met good friends or a wonderful partner? Awesome, but you have to find time and keep that connection going. Finally published that novel? Great, now figure out how to sell it and get busy writing the next one. Life is exhausting. Story 13. How are laws and government just suggestions? They are so easily subverted, and people who I thought would defend them have caved. Story 14. How much the pets that you get as an adult when you know and expect that final day is going to come, and it is the last time you get to see or hear your actively chosen little fur buddy, is going to absolutely ruin your day when you have to make the choice to say that final goodbye to do right by them. It has been almost 3 years, and I still think about our little Tabby every day. I miss him a lot. Story 15. Unless you have money, you are in serious trouble. I turned 30 and started having health problems. Spine problems, stomach problems, eye problems, all in the same year. My insurance will be cut off soon. I injured my back at work and will never be able to do manual labor again. How do I make money? I never got a college degree. Insurance covers my work injury, but not the rest. I can't afford the costs. My parents are elderly and cannot afford insurance either. They have to wait months to see a doctor or get tests done. Insurance controls everything and determines whether you live or die. Without it, you are in a very difficult situation. It is depressing seeing my parents with medical collection bills and knowing I can't do anything to help them, and knowing I will probably experience the same thing soon. We are all struggling here. My only option is to go back to school and try to get a degree, but the pain from my spine is sometimes too much and I can't think clearly. Part of me feels hopeless about the future. Story 16. If you are fortunate enough, you will see and hear about many people you have known throughout your life passing away. Some young, some old. Story 17. Your family may not love you. They may dislike you or not care about you. They may want to hurt you and be manipulative. The family does not give everything for you, and unconditional love may not exist. You do not have to give everything for the family. They are still people like anyone else, and they can be unpleasant. Story 18. Being a good person does not guarantee anything. I used to think that if you worked hard, were kind, and followed the rules, life would take care of you. But as an adult, I have seen how unpredictable and unfair life can be. Story 19. No one is going to tell you what to do or when. You are in charge of your own appointments, cleaning up the street after yourself and all other tasks. Becoming a parent means not only being in charge of yourself but also others who rely on you. Story 20. Our parents are flawed people too. I had idolized my mom growing up, and she struggled with alcoholism and mental health. I remember thinking she could just get really silly or emotional, progressed and then declined rapidly. It started to hit me around age 12 that there was something seriously wrong with her. Now as an adult, I realize how bad her alcoholism always was, but I could not see it because I loved her so much and did not know anything else. Story 21. As a child, I always assumed a midlife crisis would be fun, like Billy Crystal in City Slickers. No one warned me about the overwhelming existential dread that prevented me from enjoying anything for weeks. Story 22. The cost of healthcare. I figure that providing a family with healthcare is roughly equivalent to buying a new car every year without a trade-in. Story 23. Sooner or later, you are going to watch the people closest to you die. Friends, parents, siblings, possibly a spouse, or even your children. Most importantly, the sooner can happen far earlier than you expect. My 40-year-old brother died of cancer 2 weeks ago, only 8 weeks after diagnosis. Story 24. You can be super nice, friendly, considerate, and kind, and still people will treat you poorly and walk all over you. You begin to understand and sympathize with Disney villain origin stories. Story 25. My mom and dad recently told me they took out a $15,000 loan for a new front door to their house from an advertisement my mom saw on television. It is just a door with some glass panels. I do not know what material or special features it will have, but to say I was shocked is an understatement. It is becoming clear to me that I need to pay close attention to what they do and how they spend their money. Mom is already retired, and Dad will keep working indefinitely to stay busy. I am the oldest, so naturally I am responsible. Story 26. Being an adult, being a parent, basically consists of cleaning and tidying the kitchen over and over again until you just keel over and die. Story 27. The world is full of so much evil, and it is insidious how it flies under the radar. A case in point is the genocide and starvation in Gaza. Story 28. The first time you hear what the average human lifespan is, do the calculations and realize you are more than halfway there. Story 29. My parents' death. I thought we would all live forever. Then I lost my mom and a few years later my dad. I realized that we are not meant to live forever. This is the thing that hit me hardest as an adult. Story 30. That work can be really difficult and stressful because of the people you work with or report to, not because of the work itself. Story 31. That being tired is just permanent. As a child, being tired meant you needed a nap. As an adult, it is your baseline. You can sleep 8 hours, drink coffee, take vitamins, and still wake up thinking, damn. Again, no one warned us that adulthood is just managing exhaustion in different ways. Story 32. That not knowing what is going on never leaves. I assumed adults knew things as a child. No one knows anything. Story 33. Everyone you have known or ever will know will be gone much sooner than we believe as children. Christmas used to take 5 years to come when you were 6, but when you are 35, it feels like 5 Christmases all within what should be, from that 6-year-old's perspective, 1 year. Unfortunately, everyone we love and who loves us will either mourn losing us, or we will mourn their loss. I think the human brain subconsciously seeks a way to cheat death, or more accurately, make us believe it will not happen. I believe it was Bob Proctor who said, "People tiptoe through life to make it safely to their grave." And Jim Rohn on people not taking risks said, paraphrasing, "Starting a business is risky. Investing is risky. It's all risky. But if you think trying is risky, wait until you get the bill for not trying. Here is how risky life is. You are not going to make it out alive." Story 34. I thought it would be normal to have close friends, a husband, and my own house. At 30 years old, I feel like I am the same socially maladjusted 17-year-old teenager. Story 35. How much it all just never stops. You might take a vacation, but you still have to do everything that is waiting for you when you get home. There is still work to do, cleaning, bills, and pets that need attention. If it is a family vacation, the kids still need you just as much, so you do not even really get a break there. There is no way to quit. It is keep going or die. Story 36. The older you get, the fewer people care about you. You can live a good and honest life, but life will never fully reward your efforts. The circumstances you are born into determine the trajectory of your life more than you think. Story 37. Loneliness. You are never alone as a child. You always have friends around the neighborhood or school. But as you grow older, your friends move and do different things, and you slowly lose them until they are all gone. You realize you did not take the same amount of time for others, so now you feel lonely. It hits hard. Truthfully, as a child, there was always someone around. Story 38. You still do not get to buy anything you want, and now you understand why your mother always said no or said, "Maybe Santa will bring it." I am always thinking now, do I really need this? Before buying. Things still appeal to me and I want them. Story 39. How many curveballs life throws at you. You can establish the perfect routine, prepare for that meeting at work, and book that flight to Cancun. Then, out of nowhere, it rains, your glasses break, and your toddler gets sick, undoing all of your previous commitments. Story 40. Always being tired. It seems like all day long I feel like I could just fall over and take a nap. I try to do so. However, an entire army troops through my head bringing worries, completely irrelevant or inappropriate thoughts, memories, regrets, and so on. Why? Did I ever have the energy level I hear about children having? Or is that just a television trope? I will probably never know. Story 41. When I started having crushes on female characters as a little girl, I could not have known that it would turn into fully intimate relationships with other girls. Story 42. The strength of love, the lack of loyalty, the length of a lifetime, the depths of darkness that some individuals are capable of, the precision of reality and the perfection with which it provides. Story 43. Beauty and appearance fade. Establishing a relationship with someone solely because they are very attractive can lead to negative outcomes. After physical attraction diminishes, you may find yourself with a person whose character does not align with yours. Story 44. Nobody cares about all the achievements I have made throughout my life up until this point. What matters is today, not yesterday. Story 45. Apologies to those with children with special needs, but when we became parents, I realized we were very lucky to have children with 10 fingers, 10 toes, healthy and pretty much typical. There are many children and people who do not have the same and are otherwise hidden from society. Count your lucky stars. Story 46. I remember when I got my first full-time job after high school. When I was coming home, it hit me really hard. I have to go to work every day except weekends and feel this way for the rest of my life. The realization that I could not just goof off and play around, that my childhood was over, and that it meant working until I grow old and die was very depressing as an 18-year-old. Story 47. I have a positive experience. I never anticipated that the children I grew up with, classmates from grade school and high school whom I barely associated with, as well as those who were friends, would become my favorite people and dearest friends many decades later. Story 48. None of us have any idea what we are doing either. We have just accepted that as life and moved on. Story 49. I am allowed to go and do things, eat what I want in my home when I want to, get medical care, go on a walk. The whole world is pretty open to me within a budget. It is pretty nice. Story 50. You spend most of your time off work alone. You are basically the same person, but everyone is busy and no one hangs out much. Story 51. I have to keep making food, washing dishes, and unloading the dishwasher just to reload it with items I have made dirty again. And laundry. Is everything ever clean all at once? Story 52. When I was a child, I thought adulthood was freedom. Now that I am an adult, school is replaced with work, school friendships are replaced with shallow coworker interactions, and childhood wonder is replaced with the stress of finances. It is literally work, go home, work, go home, work, grocery store, go home, work, and justifying loneliness by being too tired. I know life is more complicated than that, but honestly, I know many people who live for the weekend only to isolate themselves because they had a hard week and are tired of people. It is very sad. Also, do not get me started on college debt, feeling behind in life, struggling to find a relationship, trying to stick to hobbies only to drop them, and continuing to get older as you wonder how you went from 21 with the world in your hands to 40, stuck in a job that makes you want to end your life but you cannot leave because you trapped yourself into your wage. I am 25, by the way. I am kind of negative, sorry. Story 53. There was never a switch that flipped when I became an adult. I do not feel mentally or emotionally different than I did as a teenager. I do not know the right answers just because I am grown up now. I do not always know what I am doing or what I am talking about. Often, I am scared that I have made the wrong choice. I do not know what is going to happen next. I would still never want to be a kid again. Being a kid is difficult. I like being able to spend my money wastefully on emotion-activated M&Ms dispenser with no justification other than I saw it, I wanted it, and it is my money. Story 54. We are born to comply. From school, we are taught how to think and feel about things. Leave school, get a job, join the rat race, become a cog, retire, and die. There is no freedom because freedom costs money. Born onto a free planet, yet owned from birth by the 1%. Story 55. People come and go in our lives. All those promises among us classmates during our last few months of high school, that we would forever be friends and keep in touch no matter what. By the 5th month of college, that pact was already broken. We all found new friends and rarely talked to each other anymore. Story 56. Every day, you have to think about what to prepare for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Can be very difficult because I basically eat very little. Story 57. As a child, even if you have few friends, you can go to school and socialize. As an adult, socializing is something people often start to ignore, and it costs money. Story 58. Being a parent and trying to do most things right might still result in your child being unhappy or resenting you at times. That is truly heartbreaking. Story 59. How much time is spent on chores? Life is a never-ending cycle of laundry, dishes, vacuuming, feeding the cats, changing the sheets, and more. Story 60. The hardest thing I had to come to terms with as a real adult was the reality of no more summer breaks settling in. It took more years than I care to admit before it finally sank in. Story 61. Only 2 weeks of vacation per year. My father was a university professor, and my mother was a stay-at-home mom. I was used to him having a month off in December and 3 months in the summer. Story 62. I grew up in a dysfunctional family, not in terms of physical abuse or poverty, but in the slow grinding existence of life when parents are not suited to be parents. My father was narcissistic and often complained about his unappreciated genius. My mother struggled to cope. I was the 4th of 4 children, and my sister says I mostly raised myself. Like a fish unaware it is immersed in water, I did not realize how my adaptations, coping mechanisms, and trauma responses affected how I saw myself, relationships, trust in others, and life in general. As I began to understand the foundation of my life and attitudes, the clouds lifted. It was not instantaneous, but over time, I learned to understand my reactions and started living a more constructive and positive life. Story 63. Specifically in the creative industries, success is rigged from the very start. It has less to do with talent or skill and everything to do with network, background, and family connections. Have you ever wondered why so many terrible films, music, and fashion are produced? It is because the teams behind them are made up of unqualified and unskilled people who got the job through nepotism or economic background. Story 64. As a girl, I didn't realize just how disgusting most men were until I was an adult seeing men my age go after middle schoolers and high schoolers constantly. I also thought about being in middle school and high school and being constantly bombarded with sexual harassment and occasionally a casual touch when I was out in public. When I was young, I thought, oh well, I must be attractive, I guess. The touching, yelling, and honking in public stopped at age 23 when I started to look like an adult at last. That was a startling realization. Story 65. It takes a lot of effort just to live. Want shelter and food? You have to work at least 40 hours per week for that, and you might still struggle to pay all your bills. Want a clean living space? Set aside a few hours a week for laundry, dishes, vacuuming, and dusting. Also, set aside an hour a day for cooking, another hour or more for commuting, and another half hour for bathing. If you want to stay healthy, you have to exercise every day. Then there is yard, house, and car maintenance. All that might leave you with maybe an hour of free time a day. If you have children, you will have zero time to yourself. Story 66. Outliving all my friends. Heck, I'm even outliving my entertainment. Magazines are disappearing rapidly. The musicians and singers I enjoyed are passing away. Even the famous wrestlers I grew up with. We had a big graduating class. Most are gone now. Story 67. There are many people in your life whom you will see one day for the last time without ever realizing it. Story 68. How short life really is. Not everyone you love gets to grow old with you. Your whole life can change in a millisecond. Story 69. College or university is a sham. It is not a place where scholars gather to discuss society, life, science, knowledge, or education. It is another institution driven by capitalistic greed and dominated by wealthy white people, at least in America. I was enthusiastic about entering academia to learn as much as I wanted, but it feels like elementary or high school, designed simply to teach specific skills so you can fit into your place in a capitalistic society, shaped by the Industrial Revolution in the United States. Even then, you are not guaranteed a job or a position just because you spent money on a degree. Learning this indirectly was my greatest disappointment. As a teenager, I still have not gone to college. I am 26. Not because I am disillusioned, but because I am still very poor and unsure about what to study or which career to pursue. I still want to learn everything and work in academia, but I struggle to get started. Do I join and struggle to benefit while being at the lowest level of academics, serving a broken system and resenting myself more? Do I try to change it from the inside even though larger issues are corrupting it? Or do I reject it and attempt to reject society at large, even though I live in it and participate in it? Never mind, maybe I will just drink, mop floors forever, and volunteer at animal shelters. Story 70. 90s baby here. It never fails to amaze how many people in American society want to be demons and live on demon time. Story 71. It never stops. Time just keeps coming. Days run by. Even a day off reading doesn't stop it like it used to. Chores. Story 72. No one truly cares for you except yourself. So, bask in your own glory and be prepared to face life's trials alone. Make your own decisions and do what is best for yourself. Story 73. My dream job laid me and my coworker off after promising so much. It is very unfair, and I never realized how awful that could feel. Story 74. Someday, you will be the oldest generation in your family. This happened when my mother died. Suddenly, it seemed like there was a transfer of responsibility. All at once, we had to handle things my mother had done for the family that we had no idea she did. My niece thought we were now old. Story 75. Adult life comes with responsibilities beyond anything I could comprehend as a child. Just because adults can do basically whatever they want does not mean it is all fun and games. You never really, truly know what you are doing because everything is a new experience, although that can be a source of enjoyment as well. Story 76. When I was a child, I thought being an adult would have a buffer zone, then a switch would flip and I would figure everything out. I did not know I would still be the same person, just in an older body. Story 77. Some people in your family will continue to treat you like a child and throw tantrums when you do not do as they say. Story 78. How much skin color truly matters. It always mattered as a child, but now it seems to matter on a different scale and so much more. Story 79. When you look at someone through rose-colored glasses, all the red flags just look like flags. That quote from BoJack Horseman hits harder now as an adult. The biggest red flags from friends to family were right in front of me, but I had rose-colored glasses on the whole time and didn't even notice the warning signs were in front of me. Story 80. It always amazed me, even into young adulthood, how adults become so jaded about large-scale ideas and plans to improve their city, province, country, and their lives. As someone who wants things to get better and supports the idea of paying higher taxes and accepting temporary inconveniences to achieve those improvements, I do not have much confidence that any of my politicians will do anything useful. I have also lived long enough to see nothing of value occur despite paying more and more taxes and experiencing increasing inconveniences with little to no benefit. I have not given up, but I understand why others have. Story 81. Losing a grandparent as an adult in her 40s is still incredibly hard, and this adult will still cry like a baby every time a memory comes up. Story 82. No one is coming to save you. The best you can reasonably hope for is occasional help from someone. Story 83. How my parents would actually treat my spouse after hearing, "We will treat your spouse like our own children all growing up." To be fair, one parent has. The other has left me completely disappointed. Story 84. Your parents are going to die, but you will have to keep going without them. It does not matter how much you love them or how unprepared you are. Death will come for us all, but probably your parents first. That is not something I want to think about. Story 85. Everyone you look to for answers and guidance, and thought would always be there for you, is gone. Now people look to you, but you are just improvising and really do not know what you are doing. Story 86. There is no guarantee of lifelong relationships or financial stability. Many people are promised forever in their 30s, 40s, and 50s and are now single again. You can lose your job at any time. There is no door to walk through where everything is taken care of forever. Story 87. Everything we learned in history class was biased to make Americans feel like they were always the good guys. Story 88. As a child, I assumed that all my skills, such as drawing, writing, and physical abilities, would automatically improve because being an adult meant I had leveled up. However, that was not the case. Story 89. Very rarely do dreams come true. Jobs, relationships, housing. People settle for what they can get because the dream becomes impossible. Story 90. The fact that not a single human actually has any clue what is really going on or what any of this is. Story 91. How debilitating a severe mental illness can be, especially when it is worse than the initial diagnosis. Each year becomes increasingly difficult. Story 92. As a child, I thought adults had everything together and knew what they were doing. As an adult, I know 99% of us are just improvising and trying to stay afloat. Story 93. So many people die. People my age, older people, younger people. The older you get, the more people you know and love will pass away while you are still somehow here. It is difficult and I hate it. Objectively, I still have most of my closest people here on Earth with me, so I am lucky, but still. Story 94. First time having to go to work in construction while feeling very sick because I had to pay rent and buy food was a real kick in the teeth I will never forget. Story 95. Perspective. Fear of the worst thing happening. It then happens. In hindsight, it was the best thing that ever could have happened. For example, lose your job. Decide to take stock and start over. Turns out the job was toxic and you were miserable. Now you make less money, but you are far happier. Story 96. You will become like Sisyphus, constantly doing dishes and laundry for the rest of your life unless you have enough money to hire help. Story 97. You're set up to fail straight from high school. They teach zero real-life lessons and expect you to just know what you're doing. Story 98. I did not expect being an adult to be as completely busy and stressful as it is. I always thought it was normal, but now I see it was very delusional. Story 99. All traumas experienced in childhood made me who I became as a young adult. Unraveling, facing, healing from, and moving forward from those traumas that I repressed made me realize that there was a point in time as a child when I stopped being in awe of the shape of the clouds and the color of the sky. Now, I want to fill all of the little free time available in this busy life with the whims and joys of this world, experienced through a lens of childlike wonder. Story 100. I remember buying a block of cheese the first time I moved out to make potato dauphinoise. I did not realize I had been living a life of such extravagance before. Story 101. I realized I would need to keep learning and living my life as I aged. When I was young, I couldn't imagine goals beyond this. Getting a stable job and owning a decently clean home. I achieved those things by age 25, despite having none of that in childhood. At that point, I understood that was the bare minimum for functional adulthood. I began to consider new and expanded goals and recognized that I needed to keep evolving and growing to achieve them. The realization was that I was not going to die young, and unless I wanted to stagnate, I needed to keep moving. Story 102. Surviving without religion. Suddenly, I was very alone, and the only ways to connect with others were arguing on the internet, getting drunk, enduring others' terrible body odor, or working. I realized how socially stunted this had left me, and I had to learn many skills. When things are hopeless, there is no light that blasts into your mind to comfort you and numb the pain so you do not think about it. Hope does not fix anything, even internally. The emotion now feels genuinely dysregulating. Problems are to be solved tactically and effectively. If there is loss, failure, or pain, it is on me to process it and release its intensity slowly without harming or scaring others. Then there are co-thinking patterns you have to relearn. This may have been the worst part. I see people online spend literal hours practicing this, and it is just painful to watch. How you communicate with someone who has religion but is deconstructing it, never had religion or only has had religion is so different. There are cultural parts of shared consciousness and shared memory between religious people. But then there is this organ that is not exercised in them. In never religious people, it is all they use all the time. Then I cannot explain well-known solutions to the problem or why something is wrong without a mathematical proof and archaeological evidence. Then you have people with both. We have random slippage. It is a long process. It feels like recovering from trauma. Story 103. Money is not as exciting as it used to be. However, you need to spend most of your life relentlessly pursuing it, as it becomes increasingly necessary for everything over time. Story 104. I always thought that if someone broke into the house, my parents would attack them and protect me. Now, as an adult, I realize they would have been just as useless as I am now. Story 105. Just the sheer lack of critical thinking with the vast majority of people. Hardly anybody seems capable of taking a step back and looking at things from a different perspective or even doing the most basic research to see if what is being said is correct. People are often unwilling to question their beliefs and just want to believe what they want to believe, regardless of the facts. Story 106. Grief is experienced as you lose people and then realize that you will continue to lose more. Soon, you will be the oldest member of your generation among all these young people. Story 107. Realizing my parents were already old when I was still young, and now that I am just beginning life, they are already slowing down. Story 108. That being tired is not just about sleep. It is mental, emotional, financial, everything. As a child, I thought adults were being dramatic when they said they were tired all the time. Now I understand. It is the kind of tired that sleep does not fix. It is deadlines, bills, worry, errands, and pretending you are fine on top of it all. Story 109. I thought there was going to be a step-by-step guide to becoming an adult. I am 45 and still reeling from that mistake. Story 110. Just how much better adulthood is compared to childhood and the number of people who want to go back to being helpless. Story 111. Knowing I will have to spend my healthiest years working and may still never see, experience, or accomplish 90% of the things I want to. I have affluent aspirations, and without extraordinary luck or opportunities, It takes a long time to be truly secure in health and financial stability. As an adult coming from poverty in America, if artificial intelligence goes well and I become wealthy enough, I know I will eventually be able to make myself biologically immortal. However, first, I have to prove to society that I am a valuable contributing member, accumulating good karma and money. Story 112. I never dreamed that I would see American society and the global ecosystem both collapse at the same time. Story 113. How my childhood trauma would catch up to me in the form of physical pain and health issues. I did not see that coming. I learned about it while taking a class in college called Children in Crisis. Adverse Childhood Experiences. Story 114. Maintaining friendships as priorities change in everyone's life is challenging. Making new friends to fill the gaps is much harder than expected. Aging parents are another significant factor. Story 115. I have to buy toilet paper for the rest of my life. All the other mundane adult tasks are fine. I transitioned to cooking, cleaning, laundry, bills, and working pretty well. But every time we run out of toilet paper, I think, again? When does this end? I could not tell you why this is such a big hang-up for me. Story 116. The older you get, the smaller your friend circle becomes. You lose most of your childhood friends. If you still keep in touch with any, consider yourself lucky. Story 117. People often do not treat others as they want to be treated, and the politicians running our countries, as well as other people in power and wealth, rarely have the people's best interests in mind as they should. It was shocking to discover how corrupt and corruptible so many people are. Story 118. Prioritizing yourself should not be shamed, especially when doing so can improve your position in life. It is important to care about others because that supports friendships and relationships. However, as someone who over-prioritized others above himself, I always put my needs last. I wish I had been less concerned with maintaining relationships and focused on my success, even if I was called selfish. This way, I would have learned the value of not holding myself and my quality of life back for others. Story 119. I can never even see the world, let alone anything that lies beyond. More than half of the world's population wants me dead, and most countries will kill me on sight if I attempt to travel to, through, or near them. Even my own country is actively debating how best to dispose of me. I would love to travel, but even if I survive the trip, there is a very real possibility that they will either refuse to let me back in or make me disappear. So that is a lot of dreams dead. Story 120. The extent to which both individuals and institutions will betray you is significant. Additionally, the reality is that most people pretend their way through life. As children, we were told that life is precious and people are unique. However, as adults, many do not live as if anything matters. Story 121. This is not everyone, but most people I know have encountered it. Once you reach six figures, it is still never enough. Story 122. Nobody cares about what you are not doing, so just work harder than everyone else to get what you want. Ryan Stegman. Story 123. Women seek friendships to get support. Men seek friendships to get a break from being the support. The greatest gift men give each other is not having to do anything. Story 124. Both my parents died before I turned 29. I am likely going to marry my boyfriend at some point. My mom will not be there to go dress shopping. My dad will not walk me down the aisle. I do not even want a wedding at this point, but I know my boyfriend does because he still has his mom. I could just go to the courthouse and be done. Story 125. The death of my parents and the loss of my health in a short time made me truly appreciate life and how fragile it is. I was very careless before. Story 126. When you fall in love, you will not usually be loved in the same way in return. This is not a fairy tale, try again. Story 127. The happiness and carefreeness you had as a child will someday be gone forever. No matter what you accomplish, who is in your life, or where you live, you will never feel like that again. Story 128. Having to help my mother pass away. I was always aware she was ill and was given 2 years to live when I was born. But she defied the odds and kept fighting until I was 21. As much as I knew how sick she was, I could never envision her passing away. She was a warrior. Then the day came. 19 years later, it still makes my heart ache like it was yesterday. The bond we had will never fade away, even though she is no longer here. Story 129. Everything takes so much time, focus, and effort. Everything happens slowly, requires planning, and you can only really progress on one thing at a time. Story 130. How painful it is to lose people. When I had to watch my grandfather die at 22, it felt like my whole world ended. Felt like a piece of me died with him. Now, every day I wake up with the fear of losing someone else I love. Story 131. Owning my own home will not happen in today's economy unless someone I know dies and leaves me a lot of money or someone simply gifts me a house. Neither is likely to happen. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.